You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
What's up, Coaches Nation? This is Dr. Sherry again and Faisal and San with the Coach's Journey podcast. We are excited today to continue the conversation that we had started last week or our last podcast. So if you haven't listened to the last week, go listen to that too. Super important. What we're doing in the Coaching Mastery community, who is the sponsor for this podcast, is we are developing an assessment for coaches so that you can better understand, depending on where you are in your coach's journey, what you need to focus on to move your business forward. And because sometimes we get overwhelmed, like we have to think, oh my gosh, I don't have all these crazy business systems in place. But maybe that's not the thing that you need to actually focus on right now to move your business forward. So our intention is to provide complete clarity for ourselves and all the coaches in our community and coaches who are not in our community to really understand where they're at and what they need to focus on to be able to continue to grow their business in a way that is meaningful and impactful to them. So last week we talked about a few of the aspects of that. Faisal, do you want to just do a quick recap on the things that we talked about last week?
So if I remember correctly, what we went towards was the basic components of most parts of the assessment started. How are you doing in your business generally? Like what is the structure for your offer? What is the pricing for your offer? Who are your ideal clients? And also looking back at in the past few months, in the past year, how much have you made? Like these are assessments you should be doing, like what's happening. And usually it can feel painful sometimes as we're doing this stuff because like I'm not doing very well or I'm not doing as good as I needed to. Or maybe I'm doing very well, but it's going through the general thinking around the business, like what's happening, and also thinking about your goals as to like, what does an ideal business look like for you? How many clients do you have? Are they at one-on-one? Are they group? Again, what is the pricing structure around that? Thinking through that gives you clarity as to connect with the right clients and move forward in the right direction strategically. But we also went towards what's happening in your marketing. How are you putting yourself out there? What is your sales process like? And by the way, we have done a couple of masterclasses around that. So if you don't have access to that, type masterclass below hashtag masterclass, and we will give you access to that. So you have an understanding of what does marketing for coaches look like? And it might be very different than what you're thinking. And what does a sales process look like for coaches? And we also talked about at what level do you need to deliver for you to actually get clients and improve on getting clients consistently and referrals in that process. And I shared a few examples of what delivery at the high level looks like and what do most coaches do. So definitely listen to that podcast. We did that in person. So there were 3 coaches that were there that were sharing their perspective who've been in this industry for a while and have done this for a little bit. So we'll definitely give you a view as to what actually a business actually looks like and how we approach clients. So definitely listen to that one. This is not, depending on when you're listening to this, if you're listening on the Facebook Live, this will only be in our Facebook group because we haven't published this yet on our podcast or on our YouTube channel. If you're listening to this on the YouTube or podcast, look out for the part 1 of this episode. It will be enlightening for you.
Absolutely. So we're excited as we're building out this assessment because honestly, I feel like this is part of what's missing in our industry as a coach. A lot of the coaches that we work with in the Coaching Mastery community who are at the beginning stages, they're like freaking out because they don't have a website yet. They don't have all like this nurture email sequence, or they don't have all these complicated and fancy things that, in all honesty, I get sucked into those too. And it feels good to write emails a little bit better than it does to like put myself out there and do some prospecting, having sales calls and that sort of thing. But we really want to make sure that coaches don't have any reason not to focus on the things that are actually the most critical. So this podcast today, as well as some of the future ones that we're going to be doing, are really going to deep dive into some of these aspects that you really need to think about as a coach. Where are you, on a scale of 1 to 10? Where are you on these things? Have you got it dialed in? You know exactly what you're doing and it's effective? Or are you struggling in some of these areas? And so today, what we're going to deep dive into is a critical business skill that anyone in business needs to have dialed in. But particularly, we're going to take a look at it from the perspective of a beginner coach. This general business skill is time management. And as we say this, I know some of you are probably like, oh, you're groaning inside. And probably the reason you're groaning inside is because you suck at this. It's a challenge. You know that you're getting sucked into some things during your day where you're being reactive instead of being proactive, and you're struggling getting all the things done that you think needs to get done. Your to-do list never gets done, and it's frustrating. And so if you're having that reaction, that is all the more reason to stay and listen to the rest of this podcast, because we want you to have a shift in the way that you're thinking about your time.
Yeah, as soon as you shared the to-do list, I went and saw on my Office 365, there's an area where you can write down all your things that you need to do. And I looked at the number, 314 tasks.
Oh, does that give anybody else anxiety right now?
No, I've learned to contain my anxiety around that. Actually, I don't operate based on the to-do list. It's just I need to get it out of my head. I don't want to think, I don't want my mind revolving all that stuff. So it gives it some safety that it's somewhere I can review. So I review it a couple of times a week and I look at it. And for the most part, guess how many of those I need to do in a given week?
Maybe 2?
More like 4 or 5.
Okay, 4 or 5.
In a given week.
Yeah.
But my mind, if it's in my head, it feels like I need to do all of them. I'm going, oh, I need to do this. I forgot about that. Now, imagine if I had 100 things in my head revolve, and this is what most people do. By the way, your clients are doing that. And
yes.
We're talking about it, and I want to make this clear. It's not just about time management. We're going to talk about it in relation to your business, because the one thing that throws off coaches, especially in the beginning stages, are that they think that they need to spend 30 hours on their business, and they don't have that because they have their family, they have their job or something else going on. That is not accurate. And I'll share a story in a little bit, but I want you to think about it from 2 perspectives. 1, you need to understand what to focus on when it comes to your business. 2, you need to develop the skill set of time management, not because you've read it in books, but you're actually implementing it in your business, in your personal life. And here's what ends up happening. When you coach clients, you'll find this is one of the more difficult areas for most people. Their productivity, most people are not productive. They're just busy. And they don't know how to navigate that. And if you haven't gone through the process of it, and we've talked about it a lot, if you haven't battled this area in your business, you're not going to be able to help them. You're not going to be able to ask the right questions. You're not going to be able to take them through a process because you just have not dealt with it. What you're going to do is try to bring information from all the books that you've read and try to help them through that. It does not land well. You're not a professor, you're a coach. So this is going to help you on both sides with your clients, but also in your business. Did that sound enough?
Yeah, I love that. I love that perspective that not only is this important in your business, but this is an opportunity for you to level up so that you can be an even better coach for your clients. Because I think you're right. When I look at and think about the clients I've had, I can't honestly think of one that didn't have some challenge around time. I think that's almost a universal challenge right now as life becomes more busy, more fast paced. We're exposed to more things. There's just so much more options that it's hard to be able to focus on less things and kind of ignore the other things. So
one more thing. And also in the beginning stages of anybody building a business or even coaches, they're thinking, you know what? When I go full time and when I have all the clients that I need, I'm going to drop all these other things and I'm just going to focus on this and I'll be much more relaxed and I'm going to create this life where I'm going to be on the beach. I'm going to be sipping on my pina colada.
Do you like pina colada?
That's not what's going to happen. Yes, you will have more free time, but here's what ends up happening. It's a very interesting thing. As you develop more skill sets, more opportunities come along. As you develop better relationships, more opportunities come into the picture. And if you are, I would assume that most coaches are ambitious to some degree. Yeah. If you're ambitious to any degree, you will notice that your time is going to become less and less. That means that you'll have less time you will be spending this time more intentionally doing more fulfilling things, but you will learn to manage that time better. It's amazing how that has happened. I used to think that, oh, you know what, I'm just going to coach 10 hours a week or 15 hours a week or 20 hours a week. And then the rest of the time I'll be doing, that is not what has happened. I still work about 37 hours a week. And that is a miracle that I can maintain that right now. But what I feel is I have more time with my family. I have more time with myself. I've been able to manage that better because I've had to force myself to not just me, my coaches, all the people that are in my life that challenge me to get better in this process. I went from working 70 hours at some point in my coaching business to pushing myself to get to this point. And a lot of it is a skill set. This is the battle. This is what you need to learn. And this requires not just productivity, it requires clarity. It requires you to challenge yourself to deal with those fears. Oh my God, if I don't work in this area, what's going to happen? If I don't spend time, and it requires you to become a better leader as to communicate better with your partner, with your life partner, with your business. There are a lot of pieces in this time management process that helps you get focused, build a business, but even more importantly, helps you help other people. Most people struggle with this. I don't care how great they are. I struggle with this at times. Right now, I'm struggling with this, but I'm going through a challenge phase that's going to help me grow as a leader. So that's what we want for you. So I just wanted to amplify that.
Yeah. And just to reiterate the mindset of that you talked about of, well, I can't do it right now, but that's something I aspire to. I will do that when that whole thing, that reminded me of long time ago. I remember hearing this in a church that I was going to, and that was around tithing. Sometimes we're like, well, I don't have enough money, quote unquote, money to give right now, to give to charity, to give church, give to wherever. But when I make X amount of money, then I can donate, then I can give charity. But rather, why don't we, even when we feel like we can't, develop the discipline to do it, even in a small fashion, so that when we get more money, we already have the discipline and we can actually do that. Because when you get more money, it's so easy to be like, ooh, now I can do more. And we just, if you don't have the discipline of thinking of others, why is that going to magically change when you have more resources? So think about your time in the same way. If you don't treat your time now the way that you need to later, you won't develop the discipline necessary to be able to manage it when you have a lot more going on.
Yeah.
So Faisal, let's jump in. What are the things that beginner coaches need to focus on right now to get the most bang for their buck?
So I will kind of lay out the model, but can I share a quick story around that? I think
no, absolutely not.
Okay, anyway.
Of course, we love stories, especially yours.
Thank you. So I remember this was I think it was close to 5 years ago. So I was with my friend Lisa. Maybe Lisa's listening to it. She's still a coach. Lisa was part of our community too for a while too. So I was walking. This was I think, if I'm not mistaken, this was in San Diego. We were about 45 minutes from the certification, Brendan Burchard's high performance coaching certification. And our hotel was about 45 minutes. We would walk by the water as well. Beautiful area. So we pretty much walked every day there and back, and we got a lot of chance to kind of reflect and talk about all this stuff. And every certification I've gone to, I've kicked myself for the first few years. Like I'd get all excited and then I would go through the year and then come back and like, I didn't do most of that stuff when Brenna would go into how many people did you talk to? How many calls did you do? How many sessions did you deliver? I got busy with websites and all sorts of stuff, trying to learn programs around marketing and all that stuff. So I remember walking away, and I think this might have been the fourth day when they were talking about the marketing and sales fee. I was walking away, and as I was talking to Lisa, I did this calculation. I don't know how this became very quick, but I think I was doing it in the background. I did this calculation in my head. How much time did I actually spend on building the business piece? In my mind, before I did that calculation, I'd spent the whole year working hard and do this. When I did that calculation, it happened within the course of like 5 minutes. And Lisa was saying something. I guess I was not even paying attention to her. Sorry, Lisa. So this is what came to be. In total, when I did that calculation in my head, in total, I had spent max 4 weeks on the business out of the whole year.
Wow.
But in my perception, I thought I was working on it every day. It was a lie. Because what I did was I calculated how many people did I reach out to? How much time did I spend reaching out to people? How much time did I spend doing strategy sessions? and how many offers did I make? And like, well, how much of my time went in there? When I was doing it, I was barely touching that area. And the more I thought about it, the more I calculated, like, oh my God, my mind has been lying to me, and I've been buying into this. And I remember I'm like, you know what? I just realized something. I was not listening to Lisa. And she was kind enough to just pay attention to that, because I had a big realization of like, I don't think I've been working on the business side. I've been saying that I have been, but I don't think I have. And if I were to guess correctly, and maybe it won't be that as extreme as me, a lot of coaches are saying that they're spending time to actually to connect with clients, move that part forward. But in reality, that might not be the case. And I don't want you to take my word for it. Build a timetable, build a calendar, and track it for a month and see where your time is going. We'll talk about how you can lay out your calendar, what to focus on. But the only way you're going to know this is if you see the data visually, not in your mind, not saying that, oh, well, you know what, I've dedicated 20 hours of my week or 15 hours of my week to coaching, but it's not moving forward. That's too vague. It's too general. You will always end up with a feeling of overwhelm, because what you will end up with is nothing is working. You cannot track any of the data. We'll talk about the model, but what are your thoughts about that, Sherry?
Oh, I think it's fascinating. And that the principle that our own reflection is often not accurate unless we have data is, so in my PhD program, I took multiple classes on statistics and behavior change. And the research is clear that unless we're tracking something, we are going to overestimate or underestimate every time. This shows itself in weight loss programs. If you're not tracking your calories or whatever metric, of consumption, if you're not tracking that, you're underestimating your calorie intake, which is why then a lot of us don't lose the weight that we need to lose. But if you do track, even just the simple fact of tracking with no intentional change in behavior, tracking in and of itself actually causes behavior change in the direction that you want to go. So I guarantee you, this is from science, that if you start tracking your time now, magically, you are going to start aligning your time to where it needs to go a little bit already without even like intentional effort. But then if you layer on top of that a recognition of where it's most productive to spend your time, you're going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you said it very well there. And so let's go towards, where do coaches actually spend their time on, and where do they need to spend time on? So in my experience, and maybe you could share your experience and my own personal experience by talking to hundreds of coaches at this point. And this is where most of their time goes. They are consuming information. They're buying programs and they're learning, they're reading. Coaches are learners. They are, and that's a good thing until it becomes a problem for them. And I've actually challenged coaches to stop reading, stop learning, time to execute. And I remember the first time I can't believe I'm saying this, but my challenge to you is stop all of your reading, stop all of your learning, and what do you need to do to actually move this forward? So most coaches are spending a huge chunk of their time consuming information. Information does not translate to implementation most of the time. And this is part of our value in CMC, is that our focus is implementation. Our focus is not for you to. So even if you come in, we have a lot of videos and stuff in our program, but we don't tell you go watch all of them or can binge watch on all of them, because that might not serve you. Show up to a few sessions that is actually going to help you move forward and do the work in the background. So most coaches are spending a lot of their time on information gathering, and then part of their time goes in going into all sorts of programs. So they will be part of it is they're actually watching videos and learning and documenting. And the other part goes, they're part of multiple programs. So they're going into this session, that session. Before you know it, every day they're in sessions, but they're not doing anything in their business. So a huge chunk of their time is taken. And on top of that, they have a huge lack of clarity as to what business looks like. So I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. It's like, I need to come up with a business plan. They have no idea what that means in the coaching world. And I've seen coaches who have spent 3 years, every time I ask them, like, I need to clarify my business plan. I want to know what this business plan is that it's taking 3 years to build, not to execute, but to build. So, and this is not a judgment thing, because I've done all of this stuff. So first, my fingers pointed at me. Second, this is the data I'm hearing a lot from coaches, that they spend a lot of their time doing this. And then the rest of the time goes into they're stuck in their own personal life. They're stuck in their own mind a lot of times. There's a lack of confidence. There's overwhelm. There are challenges in their home. We'll talk about that a little bit. And this is why it becomes really important. Where is your time actually going? We'll give you some guideline today for you to kind of focus on that. But before we go there, what are your thoughts, Sherry?
When I was listening to you say, stop learning, I bet some of you were like, Faisal, that's ridiculous. Like, you're being a little bit resistant to that. And that's okay. And I'm wondering, because we're not saying that learning is bad, wrong. What we are saying is that we have such a tendency to learn and want to grow internally. But is that really materializing into taking action and moving yourself in your goals? And if it's not, if you're filling all of your quote unquote coaching work time with just learning and not implementing that, that's the problem. That's the discrepancy that we're talking about. So, if you're spending 10 hours a week reading and watching and doing all these things, what if you just put that down to maybe 1 hour? And then the 9 hours, you actually did some things that are productive. So it's about, if you're not getting the results that you're looking for in your business, you're not growing, you're not getting clients, that's what you need to focus on, not just learning more about things without actually implementing. And that implementation piece is so huge. And that's why we focus on that so much in the Coaching Mastery community, because that's what we're missing. And I think this is a human problem. I will guarantee it, as you're listening to this, coaches, you can probably think about your own clients. They probably know a lot of the right things, quote unquote, right things already. They know what is not making them happy. They know what those stuck points are, but they don't know how to actually implement change or to sustain it. So we're not really any different. That's a human problem.
Yeah, well, we all fall into that. And what it is, so the biggest growth that I had in my business, I think it was at 2.5 years into the business, up until like maybe 4 years. And I remember clearly what I did. I remember going into certain sessions. Some of them were in Coaching Mastery community. There were some members that I had pretty much every week. This took a lot of restraint for me. It's like, did you hear Brendan's doing this thing? Did you hear Steve Chandler is doing this thing? Did you hear? And I would take a deep breath. I'm like, I think they've taught me enough. I need to work on doing this. And I just stayed on my track. I need to make this work. I don't need to go into another conference. I don't need to go into another session. I think he did his job. It's great but one of the reasons why I jumped into this world is because I'm constantly on a learning journey, and I love that. But the problem was that learning was not translating into implementation. It was not translating into me getting clients. It was not trying. But when I did that over the course of 2 years, and I saw a bunch of coaches, they went into different programs, they invested into this. I did invest into a few programs, but they were mainly for the purpose of implementation. They bought tens of thousands of dollars of program. And I would ask him after a year, like, what did you get out of it? Like, I learned a lot about sales. I learned a lot about this stuff. I'm like, so where's your business at? Crickets. Doesn't exist. And I know why, because I did that 2 years before that, and I was just doing that. And to this day, I know coaches who've been in it for 5 years, 6 years. Some of them started exactly around the same time as me, no business whatsoever, because they're still doing the same thing. So when you put a pause on it for a brief period of time, for 6 months, 3 months, and you will see the results yourself. Now, I want to jump into the model. And here's the thing. Most coaches think that they need to spend 20 hours, 30 hours, 40 hours. So they do a lot of this restructuring, and they even create tension in their home that, I need to spend time. And then they get this feedback from their spouse or something else that, oh, now you have a job and now you're taking on the business. Where are we going? They're not able to communicate this. So it creates more of a tension at home, lack of support at home. But you don't need to spend that much time. It's very likely if you're starting out as a coach or you're in the beginning stages of it, one of two things are happening. You either have the funds to sustain yourself. So you have like a cushion for the next 6 months or 1 year where you can focus on the business. Great. You have a head start. You can spend 20, 30 hours a week building that. That could accelerate the process. But in my experience, most coaches have a job or something happening in the background that is helping them sustain it. And then they might have a family. They don't have a lot of time. But what they do is they overwhelm themselves that I need to spend more and more time, but they don't know what that time line is. So what we're suggesting is you don't need more than about 12 hours a week, 10 to 12 hours a week. And if you were part of CMC, this is what we would tell you, and this is what we tell our clients. If you have 10 to 12 hours a week, you will spend about 4.5 hours in CMC. Those 4.5 hours, if you took advantage of everything. We don't even tell our clients to take advantage of all the sessions that are running. So here's how that looks like. And that's not them going into our course and watching videos and stuff. That's not what's happening. They do a couple of things. One, they're part of our coaching chain. That means they're coaching somebody and getting feedback for their coaching process. And they have a coach. So they're going through their own growth journey. They're getting a coach. So about close to, in total, 2.5, 3 hours goes to that. So they're getting the support that they need in that area, and they're getting feedback. And so they're getting their confidence in building in their coaching, and they're understanding which areas to improve beyond a shadow of doubt. So when they go talk to a client, they know what their weaknesses and strengths are, where they can push, what works, what doesn't work. That's an important piece. Second pieces are like they will show up to likely a 90-day challenge. That's the only 90-day challenge is 90 minutes a week, 3 times a month. And when they come, they're a part of the 90-day challenges. We're getting them to implement. They go through a training, a discussion, but they spend a few minutes working on the thing that they need to do. And that's just moving their business forward. So that's part of the process. So let's say 4 or 5 hours they spend on that. Now they're left with a good, if they had 10 hours, they have 6 hours left. If they had 12 hours, they have 7, 8 hours left. What we challenge clients to do is that go find people that you can coach. You should be spending a good 4 to 5 hours prospecting. You might have a couple hours where you watch some videos, and even the videos, it would be your own sessions. You're listening to the recordings. I would suggest more of that. But 4 to 5 hours, you're prospecting and doing sales calls. So in the beginning, you will mostly be doing prospecting, calling, messaging people, putting up content and connecting with clients and having conversations. Later on, it's going to shift more. You will have more calls on your calendar, and they're tracking this. They know exactly where their time is going in this 10, 12-hour period. And ideally, they know exactly where their time is going in all their life. But at least if they can track this over the course of a month, they know where it's going. And most of the feedback that we get from our clients is that, they fall off course. They stop being consistent. They don't do it. And a lot of this is a personal challenge. And this is your growth as a human being and as a coach, that you get focused and consistent. Does that paint the picture, or did I miss parts in their share?
I feel like the picture is pretty clear. If you still have questions that don't get answered through this podcast, which is very likely because we're just touching the surface of it, feel free to comment, send us a message, support@coachingmasterycommunity.com. Put a comment below depending on where you're hearing this or seeing it. We would love to engage with you around this topic. But yeah, I think the most basic thing to understand from what I'm hearing, Faisal, is that we don't need to spend the crazy amounts of time that we think we do on business, because sometimes we then use that as an excuse. Well, if I can't spend 25 hours a week, then it's not worth it. And so you spend nothing. It says all or nothing thinking, and we want to avoid that. And then within that is recognizing that, a little bit of time spent on growth and conversation for improvement, but a lot of it needs to be really about reaching out and moving things forward. And this is where a lot of us, I think, I don't know that I've actually met a coach and had a conversation where they didn't say, yeah, that kind of freaks me out, because we're putting ourselves out there. We're hoping that people see the value in what we do, or they experience the value of what we do. And quite frankly, sometimes they don't. And that can be an ego deflator. And so, all of these things can create this environment where we're really not wanting to put ourselves out there and reach out and have these conversations. But that's exactly what we need to do. That's how we get better. That's how we actually serve other people. And so I love what you're saying.
Thank you. So, and let me give you like a timeline of how this works. And this is very similar to workout. So if you take exercise into account, a lot of us might be tempted to, I'll work out 2 days a week. I'll spend an hour and a half at the gym, and I'll get it out of the way. But you know what might be even more effective is about 20, 30 minutes for 6 days, 7 days a week. That will give you more ROI on your workout, and it'll give you that consistency over time. will help you build your physical health more so than you doing it 2 or 3 days or every now and then here. This is a lot like that. So if you kind of follow that, so this is what happens. And I've seen this in business owners, and coaches are no different. They will have a push period. They will feel motivated. They came out of a conference or they went through a program. They will spend quite a bit of time doing this thing over the course of a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then they burn out. They burn out because they're neglecting other parts of their life, and then things break down, and then they kind of move off slowly. But now compare that to somebody who's consistently over the course of the next 6 months spending 10 to 12 hours working on the business. Even if you did sessions, let's say if you did an outreach process prospecting, you booked calls with 5 people every week. That over the course of a month, that's 20 calls. Over the course of 3 months, that's 60 calls. 6 months, that's 120 calls. I can bet you over the course of 6 months, if you did 120 calls and you have not translated at least 10 of those into clients, there's something else off in that picture. You will know beyond a shadow of doubt. You will need to get more feedback. You'll have a lot more data points. But I will bet, even if somebody is not even good at sales, if they did 100 strategy calls, I can bet that you will sign up at least 8 to 10 clients. Then you might have to lower your price a little bit. You might have to restructure the offer, but you will have consistent clients. Now, here's what's happening. Most coaches are not doing those 120. If you actually look at the course of coaches, if they've been in on for a couple of years, in a year, they might do like 20 calls, maybe 30 calls. And when you do 20, 30 calls, you might have one client here, one client there. So they're getting clients here and there, but they're not consistently getting clients. They're not getting referrals either because they haven't tested it enough times. So here's my challenge to you, and I'll keep giving this challenge until somebody takes it. Do your 100 calls. Do your 100 calls. Stay consistent. If you did 10, 12 hours, I bet you in the next 6 months, you're going to get clients. Now, our job in CMC is not to just get you a few clients. It's help you develop the system to create clients consistently for you to have the confidence to create that and slowly scale that to the next level. And so go get your clients, put in that time, put this on a tracking. It doesn't have to be too complicated. Even if you put block times on the calendar and by the end of the month, you can look at it. Okay, I spent that much time. All I ask is be honest. When you block that time, at the end of the time, look at how much time you actually spend on the thing that you did and write and shorten it or lengthen it based on that. So by the end of the month, you get to it. Okay, what did I actually do? I spent time here and I did some marketing. I did some posts. I spent 1 hour on the prospecting or 2 hours in that week on prospecting. You will see the pattern that you go through, and you will notice that the most uncomfortable area is actually talking to people about your coaching and actually walking people through a process. And you will notice most of your hesitation is in that area. So my challenge to you is block that time. It's 2 hours or an hour and a half every day or 5 days a week or 2 hours every 5 days a week. You will notice that your coaching will grow. Your consistency will grow. You will do something in relation to your business. That will transform how you show up. It sounds very simple, but test it out. And if you get stuck, reach out to us because we have a lot of areas that we haven't talked about here. We're talking very surface level. We can help you progress there much faster.
Absolutely. And quite frankly, it is simple, but hard.
Yeah, simple does not mean easy. Simple.
It does not mean easy. It is hard, which is why we're not doing it or we struggle so much with staying on track with it. And quite frankly, this whole conversation is motivated me. I'm like, okay, I need to redo what does my week look like? And really, and the way that I look at it is, there's things that happen in my week where I want to be proactive in. And that's where my mind lives. I want my in an ideal world, Sherry's entire week would be entirely proactive, which means I get to make the choices of what I do, when I do it, and nobody else gets to interfere with that. The reality is I have a husband, I have kids, which are now home, And I'm surprised one hasn't walked in yet this morning, but I am now home, or they're now home for summer. I have multiple businesses. I have different kinds of clients that not just coaching clients. I also have real estate clients and investors. There's a lot of people that are approaching me and want my time. And sometimes I have to be in reactive mode and addressing what other people's needs are at certain times. And so there are a lot of challenges, but just because I have to be reactive in some of the things that I do doesn't mean that I have to let that consume my week so that it just goes to crap and I end my week and say, well, that was I didn't get to do anything that I felt like I needed to do in order to move my coaching business forward. So that's my challenge, is always being intentional of how can I protect that proactive time so that I can really move the goals forward. And so both of those exist, and how can I be more intentional around them? So that, as we're talking, Faisal, I'm like, okay, I need to pay attention to that again and kind of get that dialed in and kind of reset what that looks like for me this week and next week and for the whole summer, quite frankly, and get more intentional with that.
Yeah. And as you're saying this, I'm looking at my calendar and I'm looking at what am I doing here? And there are things in my business that need to move forward. So this weekend we have a camping trip coming up. I need to set up the RV. I haven't for the summer. I need to de-winterize it. I'm in Canada. I haven't even changed the tires on my car, so I need to do that. So I set up all those appointments. But what I had to do when I look at my calendar, there's no way I'm going to prepare all the other stuff. So I talked to my wife. My mother-in-law is going with us. I'm like, you're going to have to do the food stuff. I will not have any time to do that. There's no way we're going to prepare. The only thing I can do is get the tires changed, get the RV prepared, and that is it. And I'll do the cooking and I'll do the barbecue there when we get there. But for me to be I've had to learn to delegate and communicate because I have a calendar telling me if I miss these things, there's no way I can move this forward. I have 3 sales calls coming up, actually 2 intro calls, 2 full strategy calls. I have 3 group coaching sessions. And then I have all the personal things that are happening. Today, I have a session that I want to attend. Within all that picture, and I'm trying to figure out some other stuff in the background, there's no way I can do that. So if you don't have this data in front of you, what will happen is somebody at home or in your things can you help me with this stuff? And your response will be yeah, you haven't thought about it yet. Yes. And saying yes to everything instead of let me look at my calendar. Let me look at what's happening because I'm going to fall off course and I'm going to get overwhelmed over the weekend. So when I get on Friday, when I leave for camping, I want to forget about my work. I just want to focus, and that's usually my goal. So part of it is your lifestyle. This is your growth. This is what you're going to be dealing with your clients because most clients are not good at this. If you can figure this out, this is just one part of the puzzle you're figuring out by building this business. We'll leave it at that.
Perfect. Well, I hope that as you're listening to this, you are excited. Maybe a smidge, there's a twinge in your soul that you're like, I know I can do better. Honor that gut feeling and do the work because it will benefit you and your clients. And, this is what life is. It's constant growth. So I'd love that you listen to this and that you're still here. So thank you for that. Whatever nuggets, whatever thoughts you had while you were listening to this of I maybe could do this or should do this. Write it down, make a commitment, find an accountability partner, join CMC, whatever you need to do in order to really make sure that you're committing to moving this forward for you, for your business, for all of the reasons why you even have a coaching business, your family, your future, whatever that is for you. So we are excited that you are here. And if you want to know more about Coaching Mastery Community and all the ways that Coaching Mastery Community supports your business growth, supports your coaching growth, and supports your personal development growth, which quite frankly, time management falls under all of those categories, then go to coachingmasterycommunity.com and we would love to have a conversation with you, book a call, and we'll talk about, how could this serve you? Is this really the right thing for you at this time in your coaching journey? But these are conversations that could be the pivotal factor for you in growing that amazing coaching business that you're wanting to have.
And make sure you share this because there are a lot of coaches and that are struggling with these things. And pretty much any certification I've gone to, any coach that I've met from around the world, this is their struggle. Certifications don't necessarily go into the business area. They don't help them understand that you need to actually get focused. It's not enough for you to go through that process. And our motivation is, can we help more coaches build sustainable, profitable businesses that impact people actually? Not just saying it in our mind that I want to impact people, but without the business, you cannot do that unless you go into somebody else's contract. So those who are wanting to build a business, if you care about a coach, a colleague, somebody you've ran into, and I'm sure you've gone through a certification, share this with them. This might be the thing that they need to hear to move their business forward. Other than that, thank you for spending this time with us. Make sure you like it, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.